7:02, Angela. Again, good morning. Welcome everybody to, I think, our third session of this program with Angela Scarpello. It's a great pleasure to have you all back. And with that, I will hand it back to Angela and let you take it on.
Okay, terrific. So, hello, everybody. I am always so happy to see you, even though you're in a rectangle. I cannot wait to see you in real life. Prepare to be hugged. I'm just letting you know that. And so, I'm hoping that today's session, you'll start to see the threads from sessions 1 and sessions 2 being woven through today's session. So if you haven't been to session 1 or session 2, I would encourage you. Anna's been diligent in having all of them recorded. And also, I'm going to just ask you once again to adhere to a couple of things that I think will make this hour valuable for all of us. One is be present. Participate in the Zoom in a spirit of give and get, right? To give support and to get some support. And the other thing too is I would urge you not to make this one and done. And what do I mean by that? I mean that a lot of times we attend seminars, webinars, workshops, and we say, wow, that was really good. I need to start doing that. Or I really want to examine that in my own life. And then life interferes and we don't, right? So we take a webinar on eating healthy and then we say, you know what, I think I need to have a banana nut muffin and a light beer right now. So I would ask us all to see how we can take what we share today and apply it in our own life. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to share my screen. Going to hit share again. Going to see my messy desktop. And here we go. Okay. So today's session is about avoiding burnout and how to cultivate personal resilience. And you know what? I had to be really honest with myself. I was telling Anna before the call, this is for me, frankly, a lesson in teacher, teach thyself, because we're all in the same boat. It's not like I'm living in a non-COVID bubble. You know, I'm not experiencing much that's less, that's not dissimilar from what many of you are going through. And so, as I prepared for today's session, I thought to myself, okay, Angela, you know what, you've got to also walk the talk. And so I'm hoping that for all of us, today is a reminder of what we can do to avoid burnout and to build our own personal resilience, and also to help others build that resilience, those on our team, those in our circle of love, those in our families, our friends. So, with that, what does today look like? So, today is about, first of all, putting this conversation in context. It's about identifying signs of stress before we even get to signs of burnout, because stress often leads to burnout. So, it's a matter of identifying those stressors. It's also about looking at what is resilience and why is it important? Why is it important that we build resilience? And then what are some of the things you can do to build resilience? And then maybe something on here that might surprise you, which is what's the role of self compassion in building resilience and helping us effectively manage through challenging times, whether it's this time or times in the future. And then after we take compassion and turn it inward for self compassion, I want to wrap it up by saying, okay, how do we turn it outward again and help others get through the difficulty that we're going through together? So, first of all, I want to put some things in context. And I love this picture because sometimes when I write to a lot of my colleagues or friends, I mean, many of my colleagues are my friends, I often say, I'm sure you're juggling balls while you're spinning plates. And when I saw this image of all these balls bouncing all over, it either looked like one of those IKEA places that went crazy, or it also reminded me of why humans develop peripheral vision. And humans develop peripheral vision so that we could be alert to the threats and dangers around us, right? Enemy coming from behind. Wild animal coming on the left. And so to me, this image is why so many of us, are feeling overwhelmed, because so much is coming at us at any given moment. Oh no, we had to move our show. Oh no, my son's school is now going hybrid. Oh no, now my son's school is being shut down. Oh no, now I can't travel to the neighboring state. Oh no, they've run out of toilet paper. So we're dealing with all of this. And to put it in context in this idea of resilience and mental health, the New York Times did a recent survey, and 8 out of 10 New Yorkers, this was done in New York State, 8 out of 10 New Yorkers say that they feel anxiety tied to COVID, their own health, the health of those they love, and to a sense of uncertainty. The Journal of the American Medical Association surveyed in New York just between the periods of March 22nd and May 14th, and found that the three top things that people talked about that they were dealing with were anxiety, panic attacks, and insomnia. And then finally, those of you who are familiar with SAMHSA, which stands for the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, these numbers shocked me. Between February and March alone of this year, there was a 338% increase in calls to the substance abuse mental health hotline run by this services administration. That's not the shocking number. The shocking number is the difference between March of last year and now is 891%. So people are feeling the stress of what we are going through. Now, interestingly enough, and maybe not surprisingly, the literature on how people respond to pandemics is minimal, but there's a lot of research done on people who have dealt with large scale disasters, which is what this is being compared to. And that is basically PTSD, right? Post traumatic stress disorder, and what happens when somebody has a traumatic event. So, and this is where I talk about pulling together the threads from our last sessions. We spoke earlier about the role of self awareness. And this is just a reminder. I won't dwell on this because we spoke about it in an earlier session, that you can't control your emotions and make better decisions unless you can feel them and own them. You can learn what triggers you and why. You can reflect on it. And very importantly, and this will come up later when we talk about self compassion, it's about allowing yourself to feel something and not to judge it, right? I'm anxious, I'm unhappy, I'm sad, I'm worried, I'm angry. To feel it, to understand why you might be feeling it, and not to judge it. Now, in terms of identifying signs of stress, there's a difference between stress and burnout. Stress is about too much. Okay, keep that in mind. Stress is about too much. And the belief when people are feeling stress, and I wonder if any of you will relate to this, if I could just work harder, if I could just have some extra time, if I could just fill in the blank, whatever it is, if I could just get my head above water, if I could just get this project behind me, right? And so identifying signs of stress are usually about too much. And some of the signs are headaches, insomnia, rapid heartbeat, this feeling of overwhelmed, and difficulty relaxing. I remember at one point at a time of real high stress years ago, I remember saying to my husband and son, I want you to know that if I have a heart attack because I'm so stressed out lately, that you should not lay me out. And they looked at me and I said, you should stand me up. You should stand me up because nobody would recognize me laying down. You should stand me up. And it was that sense that I just could not sit down and relax and be still. And for me, I know when I'm under stress because I'm a girl who, once I get horizontal, I fall right asleep. If I get into bed and I cannot fall asleep, is because this sense of too much. My mind is racing. What didn't I get done today? Oh my God, I forgot to send that email. Or I was supposed to send that in. Oh, I never called so and so back. Right? It's a sense of too much sensory input, too much work. And remember, words create worlds, right? I feel overwhelmed. I'm drowning. I can't do this. On the other hand, burnout is a sign of not enough. And again, hear how we talk about it when we're burnt out. I don't have anything else to give. I'm done. I'm drained. I'm empty. I've hit a wall. I can't go any further. I don't have anything left. And that creates a feeling of being trapped or defeated. The other way that we often recognize that we're in a state of burnout, and for me, my husband recognizes it when I say to him, where's the sweet spot? Where's the sweet spot? Where's the happiness? Where's the pleasure? Right? And interestingly enough, this withdrawal, it causes withdrawal from others at a time when we really need to be in connection with others. We also sometimes, during periods of burnout, reach for what I call crutches, right? Whether that's food, whether that's medication, or whether that's alcohol. Now, the other thing I wanted to do for those of us in the audience who are taking care of children or young adults or teenagers is to just mention the signs of stress. These are signs of stress in adults. Signs of stress in children and teens can sometimes look like this, but they also vary. And some of the differences are that there's night terrors or nightmares, there is avoidance, there are psychosomatic issues, stomach aches, aches and pains. And also, there's for younger children, regression, bedwetting. For teenagers, it's often aggression or putting things off. So, just as we think about helping others, to be aware that people show different signs of stress depending on often how old they are and what part of the life cycle they're in. Now, when we have signs of burnout and we're trying to help either ourselves or others, this is again something that we've talked about in the past, and that's a reminder about the role of empathy. So remember, we talked about self awareness is the gateway emotional intelligence. And as long as we can understand how we feel, we can be open to sensing how other people feel. And that's a matter of picking up some of those cues. And if we look at again, what we said was the signs of burnout. When you're having team meetings, when you're talking to team members or family members, right? Are you noticing any of these behaviors, right? Do people who used to be contributors or outgoing, do they seem as if they're stepping back and withdrawing into themselves, right? Or the way they talk, is the way they're talking about things, not about what's possible, but what feels as if nothing is possible, hopeless, defeated. There's no way we're coming out of this, right? We're never going to open up again, right? We're going to lose our exhibitors. So it's a matter of being able to pick up on cues and to take an interest in their concerns, right? And as we talked about earlier in an earlier session, it's about really listening, not to judge, not to offer solutions, but to understand where they are and to connect and to sense those unspoken emotions, right? And often as women, we're the best actors and actresses when it comes to that. How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Right? When, if anything, we're not fine. The other thing I want to talk about when we talk about a reminder about the role of empathy is something that's called comparative suffering. And if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work, she talks about it, and other people in the behavioral health and social sciences talk about it too, which is our discounting of our own suffering because other people have it so much worse, right? So not allowing us to feel sad that we can't see our friends because there's some people who've gotten COVID, right? Or not allowing ourselves to feel sad that we can't go back into an office because some people have lost their jobs. And as Brene Brown says, and I love this, is that the refugee in Syria isn't helped by you not feeling empathy for yourself or for the neighbor down the block going through a divorce, right? It's not about who's suffering more. It's understanding that suffering is part of the human condition, and it's not a comparison or an Olympic event. So in the chat, what I'd like you to do is, and I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen, but Anna, Mary, you know what, I'm going to ask for your help. If you can unmute and without mentioning names, if all of you can just start typing, what do you think of? What comes to mind the minute you hear the word resilience? What comes to mind? Word association. Start typing.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, just see if you see trends, right?
Powering through, adaptability, strength, bounce back, smile, coping. It's gone fast. Strong-minded, strength, flexibility, bravery, flexibility again, courage, recovering, balance, digging deep.
Okay, so
lots of courage, lots of strength.
Right, lots of courage, lots of strength. Okay, thanks, Mary. So when I think of resilience, right, to me, and the dictionary defines it as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. And interestingly enough, this juxtaposition in the chat between flexibility and strength is interesting because we've all heard the saying about, the tree in the forest that can't bend is knocked over by the wind, but the willow that can bend with the breeze survives. And in fact, the definition of resilience when it comes to a substance or an object is the ability to spring back into shape. And I love that one almost more because what it says to me is that if I'm resilient, right, even if I'm going through a difficult time and I'm frightened or I'm angry or I'm sad, if I can remain flexible, I can come back to the authentic self that I am in regular circumstances, self-confident, optimistic, empathic, and caring. And so resilience is recovering from a difficult situation and being flexible enough to not have to become anyone other than who I am throughout that difficulty. And then when things come back to what feels more normal for me. Now, why does resilience matter? So resilience first of all, let me be clear. Resilience can be developed. It's not something that, I say, well, Sarah was born with it, Savannah wasn't, Charlotte was born with it, Margaret wasn't. Resilience is something that you can learn and you can develop. And it matters because it's a muscle that we then tap into and use for other situations. So I often think of my time as a young mother, right? And thinking my resilience in dealing with a tantruming child in public, or my resilience talking on the phone, dealing with crisis at home and at work, prepared me and made my muscles stronger to deal with bigger challenges that came up. The other reason why developing and building resilience is important is because it protects. It's a protective covering that insulates us from more serious mental health issues. So resilience has been linked to stronger mental health, and a lack of an ability to develop resilience has been linked in research with problems of mental health. So it's a matter of really taking care of ourselves as well as our ability then to move forward and take care of others. But how do we build that resilience? As I said, first of all, it's not about being born with resilience. It's about developing these skills so that we see a challenge, or we see difficulty as a challenge and not a paralyzing effect. And so there's a 4-step framework. And if you were in my last session, you're probably thinking, Angela loves those 4-step frameworks. So here's another 4-step framework. The first one I call connect and then connect again. Connect and then connect again. If there is anything that humans are built for, it's for connection and community. There is research showing that people who self-isolate die younger and have higher incidence of illness and disease, especially at a time when social norms and needs during a pandemic have forced many of us to not be able to connect in the way that we used to. We have to create ways to connect with others. Now, interestingly enough, stress and exhaustion often make us retreat into ourselves, and it feels like too much work. And that's exactly when we have to push against that to make sure that we connect. And I will admit this myself. There are times when I've set up a Zoom happy hour with friends or family, and it's been the end of a long day, who's Zooming who. And I say to my husband, oh, do we really have to talk to Anna and Billy tonight? I'm so tired. And I will also admit that after that hour and 15 minutes connecting with them, I feel so much better. So one way to build resilience is to make sure that you are maintaining those connections in whatever way you can. The other is to use whatever accessible coping skills you can, whether that's breathing to calm yourself down, whether it's meditation, whether it's 3-minute meditation, 5-minute meditation, whether it's just taking a cup of coffee and going to the window and looking outside and trying to empty your mind, or just to focus on the warmth of the cup between your hands, whether it's actually allowing yourself to be still, whether it's going for a walk, it's using whatever coping skills you can to practice self-care. The other one is changing your focus. It's about reframing your negative thoughts so that as they surface, to write them down or to examine them and to challenge them with 3 positive things, right? We will never get out of this pandemic, right? If that's the negative thought that keeps coming in your mind, right? I'll never find a job, right? Write it down and then counteract it with 3 positive things, okay? Right? I'll never find another job. I have a strong network of supportive friends and colleagues who know my skills and abilities. I have a track record of success and I have expertise in my field. When we come out of this pandemic, there will be a war for talent once again, right? So whatever your negative thoughts are, write them down and counteract them with 3 things that you know to be true. What you focus on is what you get. The other is to maintain the physical infrastructure. When I donate to my alma mater, my university, my husband always laughs at me and he'll say to me, "Are you donating to the infrastructure fund again?" And I say, "Yes." And he says, "Don't you like the department you graduated from?" And I say to him, "I do, but unless they maintain the buildings and the plumbing and the electricity, they can't do classes." And that's how I look at all of us as physical beings. We have to maintain the infrastructure. We have to eat healthy. We have to hydrate. We have to exercise, right? We have to make sure that we're taking care of the physical infrastructure so that we can build our resilience. So those 4 things: connect and connect again, use accessible coping skills, change your focus, and maintain the physical infrastructure. Now we're going to break into Zoom meetings again, and you have the instruction. I'm just going to say a couple of things. The facilitator, it's not heavy lifting. The facilitator is the person whose last name is last alphabetically. So you're a happy camper if your last name is Adams. All you need to do is to keep track of the time and to make sure that there is discussion going on. What you're going to be doing is a quick and honest check-in regarding what symptoms of stress and or burnout you've experienced these past few months, and then thinking about that 4-step framework to build personal resilience. Discuss what you are doing or can commit to doing in each of those following areas. So Anna's going to put you into a room for 12 minutes. Let's get real, ladies and gentlemen. If you're on the phone call, let's be real. We're human. That's the one common denominator of the human condition, is we all have suffering, we all have stress, we all have challenges. Let's own it so we can build resilience and move on. See you in 12 minutes. Hey, Anna, are we back?
Are we the only ones? Oh, there's more.
No, there's more people coming back. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so I hope that that was a good conversation and that you got some ideas, that you made some commitments. Maybe you even found yourself an accountability buddy. I have a friend in the events industry, and every night we text each other the 3 things we're grateful for that day. And sometimes it's like, I'm grateful I got to work from home today because I've been coming into my office in Manhattan. What else did I say? I'm grateful it stopped raining. I'm grateful for salmon, right? It's just focusing on the things that we're grateful for. It changes your focus. And now a word to the women in the audience. And I checked with Anna to see if there'd be any men. I know David's on this call. There might be a couple of other men. This is not unique to women. However, I do a lot of work with women, whether through SISO or other organizations or in my personal coaching business. And I just want to talk about how this all relates to what we've talked about and why women often are uniquely challenged during these kinds of times. So first of all, many of us should all over ourselves. Okay, and I say that deliberately, right? Stop shooting all over yourself, right? Like, how many of us have learned a language during the pandemic? We've had enough time, right? We should have learned a language by now. I've been preparing my own meals for 7 months. I should have lost at least 10 pounds. I should have gotten healthier. I should have gotten fitter. I should have had more quality time with my children. I should have cleaned out all my closets. I should have been a better friend to other people, right? I should have been more patient. Let it go. Stop shooting all over ourselves. The other thing is that I do see a connection between the superwoman myth and the imposter syndrome. If we have to be superwomen, if we have to be superheroes, think of what a superhero does. A superhero can leap over tall buildings, can fly through the air, can vanquish any foes or opponents, right? And if you can't be that superwoman, then obviously you're an imposter, because aren't we all supposed to be superwomen, right? Aren't we supposed to be able to do it all? And so that leads us to some behaviors that don't serve us or anyone else well. They don't serve men well either, although men fall prey to them less often than I see women falling prey to them. So, for example, I'm a superwoman, so I don't ask for help. I should be able to do it all. I don't want to burden other people. They'll think, why am I here? Why do I have this role? What does she do? So I don't ask for help, right? And so when we find ourselves doing things, right, we have to ask ourselves those two bottom questions. What is the benefit, and what is the default future that that behavior is creating? And this is what I mean by it. Usually the benefit to these kinds of behaviors are things that we are reluctant to admit. I don't ask for help, you might say to yourself. And I say, well, what's the benefit? Well, I don't burden other people. I don't make their plate even heavier. I show that I'm a good leader. Okay, no, but what's the benefit? And when you peel back that question and people get real, they say things like this. I prove that I'm relevant. I prove that I have value. I can be the hero who saves the day, right? I can be all things to all people. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the default future that kind of behavior creates? Well, it means that my team never learns to put out the fires the day that I step away and their house goes on fire because I put them out all the time. They don't develop the skills. I get burnt out. I get angry. I stop being creative. I might actually leave a job in a company I love because all it feels like is unrelenting hard work. So when you're doing something, if you take the time to question it and answer honestly, what is the benefit, right? You have to also ask, what is the default future that that creates? And the other thing that those behaviors often create is that you live a life where you can't be your authentic self. Being a superhero, I'm sorry, ladies, I know many of you and you're all pretty damn fabulous, but none of you are superheroes, right? So being your own authentic self is a really important thing. Now, I want to make sure we get time to talk about something that I find riveting, important, and impactful. And that is, what is the role that self-compassion plays in building resilience, building better self-esteem, genuine self-esteem, and helping us avoid stress and therefore avoid burnout. So first of all, self-compassion is compassion to others turned inward. It's about talking to ourselves and treating ourselves the way we would a beloved friend. It's about encouragement. It's about patience. It's about gentleness. And so self-compassion is self-kindness. And I would venture that many of us talk to ourselves in a way that we would never talk to a dear friend. And in fact, I would venture that we talk to ourselves sometimes in ways that we would never even talk to someone we don't like that much. You're such a loser. Why can't you get things done on time? Why haven't you lost those 10 pounds? Why can't you stop, ruminating about that? Why can't you get more done? Why are you so tired all the time? The idea is, how would you talk to a friend that was beloved? It's about self-kindness, not self-judgment. It's also about mindfulness versus rumination, right? The question to ask yourself is, what time is it and where am I? It is always now and we are always here. It's about being present in the moment, right? And accepting what it is you're feeling and who you are. That leads directly to the third bullet, which to me is the most powerful part about self-compassion. The one thing we all share as humans is our humanity. And what humanity is not about being perfect. Humanity is about being imperfect. And the interesting thing about self-esteem and self-compassion is that they are very different. In fact, self-esteem is a global evaluation, a judgment of whether we are a good person or a bad person. And and in order to be seen, for ourselves to see ourselves as a good person, is we have to be, especially in the States, and this is some of this research that was done here in the Americas, we have to be above average. We have to be special, right? And that's really hard, to be above average and to be special. Being average is not good enough. If I said to you, if you were my colleague, you're kind of an average colleague, or if I said to one of you, you're kind of an average mother, or if one of you said to me, your sessions are kind of average sessions, right? It would make all of us feel less than, right? And so, in essence, this drive for self-esteem leads to psychological issues because we can never live up to this global standard and this judgment. And in fact, research in the States at colleges show that this quest for high self-esteem is linked to higher levels over the years of narcissistic behavior and also higher levels of bullying among children. Because the way I make myself feel better than average is to make you feel less than, right? Is for me to judge you as less than. Your religion is not as good as my religion, right? You're not as smart as me. You're not as good as me. Whereas self-compassion is a way of relating to ourselves. It offers the benefits of self-esteem without the downside. Because just when self-esteem falters is when you need to bring in some self-compassion, to forgive yourself, to be kind to yourself. Rather than when you drop the dish saying, you're so clumsy, Angela, rather saying, okay, it happens. I'll try and be more careful the next time. And the research shows that there's a reason why we are so critical of ourselves. We believe that unless we're hard on ourselves, right? Try harder, right? You're not trying hard enough. Why can't you do that? We believe that self-criticism and harsh self-judgment is motivating. If I didn't beat myself up, I'd never try and lose weight. If I didn't speak harshly about how I don't get enough done, I wouldn't try harder. And the exact opposite is true because of biology. When you're hard on yourself, when you attack yourself, you trigger the same response that happened during evolutionary times, right? You either shut down or you flee, right? Or you become aggressive against yourself. And so, what self-compassion enables, and isn't this rather the way we would want to live, is happiness, optimism, curiosity, and initiative. So harsh self-talk is not motivating. Self-compassion creates an environment where you can demonstrate personal initiative, where you can feel optimistic about things. And so self-compassion and the research around self-compassion is really important for us to embrace. Stop the negative self-talk in the moment. Okay, you've gained 5 pandemic pounds. You didn't gain 50. Okay, you're not getting as much done maybe as you have in the past, but be kind with yourself. Okay, these are challenging times. Who else is judging me? I often find that when I'm harsh on myself, if I share it with a dear friend, the person is often puzzled at the level at which I'm judging myself. And in fact, one of the things that you can do when you're in that frame of mind is to write yourself a self-compassion letter as if you were writing it to a dear friend. How would you talk to a dear friend about any of the challenges that you're facing? All the ways that you're saying, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not productive enough, I'm not enough. What would you say to a dear friend? And then again, compassion, self-compassion turned inward, the ability to express compassion towards yourself enables you to help others, which is often what women want to do. This enables us, as they say on the planes, to put your mask on first so you can help others. You can meet people where they are without judgment, right? Similar to those 4 things you talked about in the Zoom room, are you creating an atmosphere for your team, your family to practice some of those behaviors, right? So if you're saying that some of those behaviors are a morning ritual to take a walk, to meditate, to ease into the day, are you scheduling 7:30 meetings? Are you scheduling late night meetings? We talked about metaphors. Watch your metaphors when you talk to your team and to your family, right? This is not a war. This is not a battle, right? This is not doomsday. Words create worlds. And then ultimately, we've got to be vulnerable, right? We've got to be vulnerable because that is the shared humanity. We don't want to feel isolated. Being a superwoman means being isolated. It means not being connected to the humanity that we all share. And so I'm going to end today with, to me, a quote that sort of sums it up. Those of you who know me best know my middle name is Angela. I love a quote, Scalpello. If there's anyone who had to have resilience, it was Nelson Mandela, who said, "Do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." Right? How many times I fell down and got back up again. We can build that resilience muscle by practicing self-care and especially self-compassion. So I hope you do some of that or more of that if you've been doing it already, until the next time we get together and we talk about what's been happening with our careers and how do we manage them intentionally moving forward, or possibly even think about a career pivot during these times. So ladies, as always, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor to be with you. Have a great rest of the week. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me, and stay healthy and stay safe.